Okay, it is 5 o'clock by my watch, and I'm going to call to order the Utility Service Board meeting for Monday, September 25th, 2023. The first item on our agenda is to see if there are any petitions or communications, and I believe we're going to have Maggie Sullivan. Welcome, Maggie. She's with the Friends of Lake Monroe. And Maggie, if you'll please come on up there. The microphone does not echo in the room, but it is connected.
You can hear me? It is working? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Maggie Sullivan. I am the Lake Monroe Watershed Coordinator. I work for Friends of Lake Monroe. I know I've spoken to many of you before, but I wanted to give a little update on where we are with the Lake Monroe Watershed Management Plan. I don't really have to tell you guys about Lake Monroe, but when I give presentations, I like to talk about how many people think of the lake first as a recreational destination. A lot of people are still learning that it's our source of drinking water. It's also home to wildlife, and it's also used for flood control. Over the years, there have been a lot of concerns about water quality in Lake Monroe and its sustainability long term. You probably know this is most frequent when there is a taste in the drinking water, which happens periodically in the late summer. And also when there's algae warnings from the DNR. I believe there's still one that people should take a shower with soapy water after they swim and avoid letting their pets drink the water. This is our drinking water source, and it's really important to protect that, keep it as clean as we can. And we all know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So that's kind of where the Friends of Lake Monroe comes in. We're a nonprofit that was founded in 2016 with a mission to preserve and enhance the lake. And one of the big projects we did was to develop a watershed management plan, and that was done between 2019 and 2022. That was supported financially by City of Bloomington Utilities, thank you. Also the City of Bloomington Office of Economic and Sustainable Development, Monroe County Stormwater Board, and those funds were used to leverage a 319 grant from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. So that's federal money that's administered by the state. So thank you again for supporting that project. Just in brief, a watershed management plan is a document that talks about what are the problems facing the lake and what are some solutions. And as the name implies, it looks beyond the water body itself into its watershed. And a watershed is the area of land that drains into a particular water body. Lake Monroe has a watershed that's about 440 square miles. A little over half is in Brown County, about 20% in Monroe, about 20% in Jackson. And there are a number of streams that drain eventually into the lake, the three largest ones being creatively named North Fork Salt Creek, Middle Fork Salt Creek, and South Fork Salt Creek. You'll notice from this map, the city of Bloomington largely lies outside the watershed. This is a pretty common scenario where the people who are in the watershed who impact the water quality the most are the least connected to that water body. We have an unusual watershed for Indiana in that it's over 80% forested, which is a great thing. Forests do a really good job holding soil in place. They capture the rainwater, slow it down, drink a lot of it. We do have some agricultural land, primarily along the streams or on ridgetops where the land's a little bit flatter. There's very little developed land. Town of Nashville is about as urban as it gets. There's also a lot of publicly managed land in the watershed. So that sort of light bluish color is a DNR division of forestry, so Yellowwood Forest. The light green is DNR state parks, so Brown County State Park, Monroe Lake State Recreational Area, and then the dark green is the U.S. Forest Service Hoosier National Forest. So what makes a good watershed management plan? It needs to be data-driven, have the science behind it. It needs to address stakeholder concerns. It needs to have the support of the community. It needs to have clear, actionable goals. I would say of those four, the most important is community support, because that's what determines if it's just a plan that's going to sit on a shelf or if it's actually going to be put into action. So a big part of developing the plan was doing outreach. We did a lot of tabling. I gave a lot of talks like this one. We held tours of the watershed. We wrote articles for papers and newsletters. We tried to get volunteers engaged where we could in things like water quality sampling. We put up these watershed signs marking the boundaries of the watershed. We also started off the process with public forums, one in Bloomington and one in Nashville, where we asked people, what are your concerns about the lake? Let's make sure that we're looking into those. We went out, we observed streams in the watershed to try and get an idea what was the land use like, were there any obvious issues, was there clogged culverts, major trash. And then we did a lot of water quality monitoring. A lot of it was new, but we also took advantage of existing data, and we had some joint projects. For example, with Brown County Regional Sewer District, they were doing a lot of E. coli testing as part of their wastewater management plan, and so we partnered on some of those. Took all that data, put it together, and we identified the top water quality threats as being sediment, nutrients, and E. coli as an indicator of fecal contamination. Sediment has a lot of potential sources, basically anywhere there's bare soil in the watershed, so that could be lakeshore erosion, stream bank erosion. On agricultural sites, that can be heavy livestock use where they're churning up the soil. That could be conventional tillage where the soil is disturbed in the spring. It can be clearing sites for development or as part of a logging process. For nutrients, they often are carried with sediment, so those are often hand in hand. But we also can have nutrients from manure, whether that's animal manure or human manure, and then of course from fertilizer, whether that's on farmland, that's people fertilizing their lawns, or businesses fertilizing their property. I like to joke that for E. coli, it could be coming from Bessie, Bambi, or Bobby. We are most concerned about livestock manure from Bessie the cow, or horses, pigs, any of those animals. And then leaking septic systems, so our human manure. There's about 9,000 septic systems in the watershed, and a lot of them are older, and so we think that's a pretty likely source. So we took all this data, we set some goals, and we put together an action plan. And the idea is to address the sources of pollution before they reach the water, so keeping them in place on the land, out of the streams. And to do that, we need to change land use practices, we need to change individual behavior, and we can look at some projects that will help protect water quality before it reaches the lake. This will all be done through voluntary adoption, so our big focus is offering incentives and education. So some examples could be promoting agricultural best management practices, which is actually something I'm working on right now. So talking with farmers who have livestock and encouraging them to fence their animals out of streams. Talking to crop farmers and encouraging them to use no-till and to use cover crops in the winter. Putting in things like grass strips next to a waterway, so water coming off the cropland gets filtered before it reaches the streams, and there's permanent living roots that are keeping the stream bank stabilized. Really anywhere we can restore and enhance riparian buffers, that's the area next to streams, we want permanent vegetation there that can help filter runoff, that can help stabilize the stream bank. And trees have the extra advantage of providing shade, which keeps the water temperature cooler, which makes it better habitat. We're looking at places where it might make sense to stabilize sections of lakeshore and stream banks. This one is a little tricky because it gets very expensive very quickly, and particularly with streams, you run the risk of just moving the problem downstream, but there are areas where this can be very effective. For septic systems, a lot of our focus right now has been on education and encouraging people to maintain their septic systems so they'll identify problems quickly and be able to address them. Longer term, it would be helpful to identify funding for repairs. It can be very expensive to repair or replace a septic system, and looking at where it might make sense to do sewer expansion projects. Really, a lot of what we do comes down to education, helping people understand how their actions make a difference on water quality, what they could do differently, whether they're just a homeowner, have a septic system, they're a farmer, a forester, all these people can play a role. So, to successfully implement our plan, we need the support of the community, we need to engage our partners, and we need to make sure we're addressing stakeholder concerns as we go. We started off, as soon as we finished the project, with the Lake Monroe Community Action Initiative, and a lot of that was about sharing the plan with people. So I handed out copies of our executive summary. We tried to get that out to local officials, make sure people understood the research we'd done and what it showed. We held a watershed summit for local officials, and we launched a pilot septic system maintenance cost share program where we would help pay for septic system inspections. This was funded through the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County with matching funds from Monroe County Stormwater Board. The Watershed Summit, we had 27 organizations there. Vic was there representing CBU. It was a beautiful October day, and all these people volunteered to be locked in a conference room for 4 hours and go through step by step and talk about what were the priorities, who should be involved in which projects. So that was very heartening to see the amount of community support. The voucher program that I mentioned, we did a direct mailing to 3,000 households that are in Monroe County and also in the watershed, and we said we will reimburse you 50% of pumping your septic tank up to $100. And we ultimately had about 78 people take us up on that. We think there were others who responded and said, I don't need the financial assistance, but thanks for the reminder. So that was good. I talked to several people who had not had their tank pumped in over 15 years and didn't realize that was a thing you're supposed to do. So there's definitely a need for education out there. Right now, we are working under another 319 grant. So again, this is from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and this grant is basically for implementing portions of the watershed management plan. It's focused largely on agriculture, so I'm working with farmers to try and get them to do some of those projects we talked about, planting cover crops in the winter, fencing their animals out of streams, planting along streams, some permanent vegetation. We're hosting a field day in October, talking about cover crops primarily, and we're hoping to do 2 more over the next few years. We're also doing some forestry workshops and some septic workshops. And another piece of this will be doing a shoreline monitoring program where we survey the shoreline of Lake Monroe and identify where is the erosion the worst, where is it already down to rock and there's not as much to do, so that we can kind of prioritize projects. And this, again, is funded through a 319 grant with matching funds from Monroe County Stormwater Board. So some things we'd like to do in the future, we'd like to do another round of the septic maintenance vouchers. We have funding to do this in Monroe County in 2024. Brown County Soil and Water Conservation District is actually doing one this year with funding from the Lake Monroe Water Fund. Jackson County is a little bit interested in doing one in the future. We're trying to get them excited about doing that as well. We would really love to have a bathymetric map of the lake so that we know. So the bathymetric map shows us the depth of the water and basically the sediment accumulation at the bottom. We all know there are some spots that there's noticeable sediment accumulation, others not so much, but it's hard to know exactly without collecting this data. Unfortunately, it's kind of a tedious project to collect that. It's driving a boat back and forth with sonar and measuring and then stitching all that data together. But we would like to do that at some point. We also are exploring the idea of creating wetlands that would act as sediment traps that would be adjacent to some of the main streams so that when it rains, we know during the big flood events is when the most sediment moves. So if we can get that overflow to go into these basins and get trapped there, have the sediment settle out in the wetlands and not reach the lake. That's one of the ideas we'd really like to see. That is a huge project. It would take a lot of coordination, a lot of investment, and a lot of engineering design and willing landowners. We are trying to continue activating and engaging our community. We do a lot of fun events like kayak trips. We do regular shoreline cleanups. We did a lot of water quality monitoring during the planning part of the phase. And we're just trying to keep people excited and engaged. Hopefully some of you heard about Lake Monroe Day, which was just a week ago. We had a variety of events for that, and we had a big celebration at Upland, but just trying to get people excited about and aware of the things we need to do to protect the lake. And then our other big goal is organizational stability. Right now I am the only paid person, and I'm paid through grants. But it really takes people to implement projects. You can only do so much with volunteer board, but it can be hard to find funding for administrative costs. So over the long term, this is just a question of building and maintaining partnerships, identifying projects that we can do, that we can find funding for, getting those done, and just doing that over and over, engaging our community and educating everyone. So that's kind of where we are in a nutshell. Again, thank you for your support through the planning process, and we've been continuing to communicate and share some water quality data and keep everybody in the loop. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Maggie. Are there any? We'll just start down the Jim.
Thank you, Maggie. So I go back to probably around 1992. Tommy Allison was mayor, and she was really great at being one of the early people very concerned with Lake Monroe. And it was probably around 1992 that the city council passed what we called a watershed plan. And I know that it involved communication with both Brown and Johnson counties. And, you know, and that was good. It was a good start. We were all happy to do it. Well, you know, after 2000, when I left the council, I haven't really kept up with, well, what's happening with the watershed plan. So has the city council been involved since 2000 in updating it, improving it?
Not to my knowledge.
That's what I figured.
We've definitely been, I've given them a couple presentations to let them know what's happening. Yeah, I have a copy of that old watershed management plan. By the time we were ready to do this one, they said, start over. It's been long enough. There was a lot of good work done there. And again, I think a lot of this is, there's grant funding to do a certain amount of work. And when that dries up and people are not, it's harder to carry through.
Well, keep on them, because I think the people on the council are not indifferent
Yes,
to Lake Monroe, so
thank you.
thanks.
Kirk?
Yeah, I just, kind of a follow-up there, but, you know, the striking thing that always came to me when we talked about the lake and our water supply and managing the watershed is that the majority of it we can't really control from our local officials in the city and county here in Monroe County, but we have to depend on Brown County and Jackson County. And so I guess my question is how are they supporting these initiatives? Because I'm not sure how much of their water supply is dependent on the lake if they're using well fields or whatever.
Right. That's a great question, and it's one of our bigger challenges. I will say that Friends of Lake Monroe is a nonprofit. We feel like we're well poised to work with all the different groups because there are all these different communities and agencies and governments involved. Brown County has been generally supportive. Money is always tight there, so that part can be challenging, but when I give presentations, they're always happy to share information. Most of the farmers that we're working with are located in Brown County. We've had a lot of interest there, which has been good. We've worked a lot with Brown County Regional Sewer District, and they're primarily focused right now on the Bean Blossom watershed in the Lake Lemon area and the Helmsburg wastewater treatment plant, but they're also really committed to keeping these ideas at the forefront that we need to do a good job, a responsible job taking care of our wastewater and our drinking water. Brown County for a while, and Vic could tell you dates, did get water from CBU, but it's been a number of years. They are currently getting their water from Morgan County, I believe. Brown County, which is from like Morgantown well
well,
fields?
Morgantown's, yeah, it's what, they've got wells in northern Brown County.
So northern
And-
Brown County,
Yeah,
okay.
and they sell it to Nashville. Nashville buys a little bit of water from us, but not very much. The pipe that goes, there's a pipe that goes from eastern Monroe over to Nashville, and that pipe is small and not in very good condition. But perhaps a future project will update all of that equipment as well. There's some interesting metering issues because we sell the water to eastern Monroe and they sell it to Nashville, which creates a mess.
So I guess the $10 billion question is, what's the, at our current rate of sedimentation, what's the lifespan of our lake?
The very crude calculations I've done, we're talking like long time that we're accumulating this much a year. But I would feel better about that if I had bathymetric data to
Yeah.
give me a little more
Sure.
information.
Well, that's sedimentation, and then, of course, the other piece is, you know, how clean it is.
Right,
And
and I think that's an important thing to emphasize is that the lake may last hundreds and hundreds of years, but if the water quality is so poor, it's not necessarily a question of not being able to produce drinking water. It's a question of how much it's going to cost. How complicated is it going to be?
and whether you know, when you're detecting problems in your supply, then you've got trust issues with your consumers,
Right,
no matter how much you spend to treat it.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions. Thank you for your presentation. And all the education and outreach that you're doing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Seth took what I was going to say. I had an opportunity to hear Maggie a few weeks ago at the Indiana Master Naturalist class, and so I appreciate all the efforts that you do around the community and in the region to educate people about the watershed, because it's so important. You have some really cool things that she shared with us that I'm sure you'd love to educate more people and bring your board and
Yeah, if you guys want to play a game, I can bring the
Yes.
water cycle game
yeah, the
to a
water
meeting.
cycle. That's what it
Yeah.
was, the water cycle game. So great things, and I appreciate all of your work. Thank you.
Thanks.
No questions. Thank you for your service.
I have a couple of questions.
All right.
So, the bathymetric measuring,
Mm-hmm.
to do that, what's the cost to do that?
I want to say $80,000, but I'd have to go check my notes on that.
But,
it is
yeah.
a thing that you can hire out.
So it's something that you hire out and, it's not $1 million project.
No.
It's, it's 80,000. That's good. In the report, you mentioned that there's on the septic systems, it says there's over 9,000 septic systems in the watershed. And then you mentioned that you were able to reach out to 3,000. Was that limited to a particular county?
That was
or-
because of our funding. We were focused on Monroe County.
Okay, so it was focused on them.
Yeah.
And this is just a very basic question.
Sure.
For everyone that has a septic system, there's no state regulating. It's more of a suggestion that you get this done every 3 years. Is there, there's
Correct.
nothing to.
There's no requirement,
There's
no
no
enforcement
requirement on the
mechanism.
homeowner. So this is something that you're basically going out, again, reminding as a public service to individuals
Right.
that septic systems should be cleaned out every 3
3 to
years.
5, yep.
And in terms of that, what are we talking on a cost on that? Is it, you said you guys help with $100. Is it a $200, $500 project?
Monroe County is usually around $150. Brown County gets a little more expensive because they got to haul the waste further to dispose of it, but we're still talking $200, $250.
But a reason, again, we're not saying this is a $1,000 or
Right.
$10,000
And
project.
compared to a $10,000 replacement, it's a good deal.
Yeah, okay. And you're keeping keeping bad stuff out of the ground, which
Right.
is very important. Okay, those were my questions. Thank you very
you.
much. Vic, thanks for having her come out here too and inviting her, because
glad to have
the
you
board
visit.
is very, very interested in hearing these reports, and wish you continued good luck with these projects. So thank you.
Can I jump in really quickly?
Sure.
On the administrative costs, the board has approved a $25,000 contribution to the Friends in 2024 towards administrative costs specifically. So we've recognized that issue. Maggie and Sherry Mitchell-Brooker have brought that up with me, and we put that in the budget for 2024. So that will help some.
Yes, thank you.
We're also interested in the bathymetric study, and I've heard from the Lake Monroe Water Fund that they're also interested in the bathymetric study. So I have a feeling that if we all put our heads together, we're going to figure out a way to get that funded in the next 12 months. I think that would be a great thing for us to get done.
That would be awesome.
So
Lake Fleming Conservancy District has experience twice in having a bathymetric survey done, so you might talk to them about
Okay.
their experience and their lessons learned from that process.
Thank you.
And the Water Fund folks will be here at our next meeting to talk about what they've been doing. So
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Maggie. Are there any other petitions or communications from anyone outside of our normal meeting? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, I'm going to move on to the next agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the September 11th meeting. Are there any questions or comments, concerns regarding the minutes? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the standard invoices for a total of $981,333.47. Are there any questions or comments on the standard invoices?
I may
Megan?
not have the most updated copy, but for the record, I had $981,330.43. And you said $33 when you read off the number, I think.
And 47 cents.
47.
I have.
Did I say it wrong?
I have $981,330.47.
Okay, I might have heard something
Okay.
different the first time. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you for doing that.
We tag teamed it.
Okay. Are there any questions? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Utility bills, $221,174.50. Are there any questions about the utility bills? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Wire transfers for a total of $433,548.12. Are there any questions about wire transfers? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Finally, we have customer refunds for a total of for a total of $2,452.43. Are there any questions on the customer refunds? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion passes. So let that be a lesson. It is important to know how to say your numbers. For those kids out there that are watching this meeting, learn how to say the numbers. So we have no consent agenda items. And the next item is bid opening for the Dillman Road wastewater treatment. Dan Hudson. I believe all of us have been provided with a sheet.
I'm Dan Hudson, Capital Projects Manager for the City of Bloomington Utilities. And as of 4 o'clock today, we have received no bids for the Dillman Road project for the replacement of the gates and valves. So we're going to go back and reconvene, find out
Okay.
what went on. In football terms, we're going to punt the ball.
I was a
Try-
little curious because you were not coming up here with a stack
Big packages.
of envelopes, so, all right, so, we're going to double check, I'm assuming, on our ends too, that make sure everything's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We've checked at several offices and maybe it was delivered somewhere else, but no, I don't think we received any bids
Okay.
on this.
Any questions on this before Dan moves? Oh, Jeff.
Was the advertising process the same as every other type of
It was.
bid?
It went to the
offer?
Herald Times twice, and I made phone calls to all the local contractors, and we did have a mandatory pre-bid meeting that you had to be there, but we had 4 contractors at the meeting, and that's it.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll take the right steps to get
Guess
this.
everybody's busy or
Yeah,
something. We'll
that
find
is,
out.
it is very true.
Yeah.
It is very true. Thank you very
Good,
much.
thank you.
Okay, so the next we have Hector Ortiz Sanchez. Hector is going to talk to us about our request for an approval for an agreement with, is it Xylem? Okay, thanks, Hector.
Water solution. For record, my name is Hector Ortiz, Assistant Director Operations. The service request we are looking is to replace a pump which is over 25 years old and is already out of service, broken, to return the activated sludge in one of the basins. So, any questions about operation?
Are there any questions? All right, hearing none. Oh, go ahead,
What
Jeff?
facility? I'm sorry.
Bleacher pool.
Bleacher pool, thank
Bleacher pool, yeah, wastewater bleacher pool.
Okay. Any other questions? The only question I have is, did it you said it lasted about 25 years?
Yeah, over 20, yeah. So
What was the life expectancy
so
on it?
when they did the expansion, or the beginning of the expansion was 1996, and we cannot find any record. Like it probably was before that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
So in other words, we're lucky that we've made it this far.
yep, we have 2 pumps in that pit, and that one is out of service.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Motion passes. Thanks,
Thank you.
Hector. All right.
System means that 25 years from now, we'll know the answer to that question.
Because we have it recorded, it is on the books. All right. The next is a request from Matt Havey for the approval of the resolution to designate some surplus property. Matt?
So we have, I believe there was a box of old accounting books, and then there was, I think, something around 17 monitors that have been replaced by ITS that they said that they do not need any longer. And I believe a couple keyboards that ITS said that they don't need longer as well. So they gave us the green light to go ahead and try to sell them.
Any questions about these accounting books? All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I will say that we got $600 from the last batch of things that we approved.
That's awesome. All right. The next item on the agenda is it Dan again? Request for approval of change order number 2 with Building Associates.
For the record, I'm Dan Hudson, the Capital Projects Manager. I'd like the board to consider a allowance authorization for Building Associates for the filter rehab project at the Monroe Water Treatment Plant. This is to use part of the contingency fund out of the project for $22,149.75. This is to remove a 30-inch butterfly valve on the drain side and put a flange in so they can complete the rest of the work. During the process of removing the filter, we found that the valve was leaking, and they can't complete the work when it's still leaking. Does not include the cost of replacement of the valve. There's about a year-long time to buy a new valve that size. It's a big valve. I'm open to questions if you have any.
So what is the cost of a big valve like that takes a year to get?
It's about 80,000.
Okay. And are we going to be placing an order for one?
No, we're taking it off, we're going to inspect it, and there's a possibility that we may be able to apply a compound inside the valve to get it to work.
Okay. Thank you.
To be closed when we're isolating that filter, which we don't do very often. It has been years since we rehabbed the filter, so it doesn't get operated very often.
And the cost of the project is not increasing. It's just using part of the funds that are available.
I'll have a question for you about signature pages on that one. Please don't let me forget. So, are there any further questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Next item, we have Kevin White will be joining us for a request for approval for bid acceptance and contract on our Southeast Basin Sewer Lining Project.
Correct. Kevin White, Capital Projects Coordinator. We are here today to present the bid acceptance and contract award for the Southeast Basin Sewer Lining Project. We had a bid opening at the last regular meeting where we opened up 6 bids that were received timely. We've reviewed those bids with the engineer and CBU staff and have determined that the lowest responsive and responsible bidder to be Performance Pipelining Incorporated out of Ottawa, Illinois. For the base bid, alternate bids 1, 2, and 3 for a total of $811,770 and no cents. And would like to request authorization to contract with the same.
Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve this contract?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great, motion passes. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. Next, we have Jane Fleeg with a request for approval of change order number 1 with Reed and Sons.
Jane Fleeg, Utilities Engineer. Yes, I'm requesting approval of change order number 1. This is for the Fullerton Pike Water Main Replacement Project that is being performed by Reed and Sons for us. There are 2 items on this change order. The first is to add restraint to an existing 6-inch gate valve, because once we line stopped it, we needed to have that valve restrained in order to get the connection put back in. And the other is to add 143 cubic yards of rock excavation at $150 a cubic yard, which comes up to $21,450. We do have rock in the bid, we just underestimated it. Our consultant had some rock borings, but they were for the road, so mostly down the center of the road, and our water main was 30, 40 feet away, and rock changes. So we've gone through their numbers, we've had our inspector out there, and we feel comfortable that this is the proper amount. So we're asking for a change order in the amount of $23,174, which will increase the contract price to $449,560. Any questions?
Okay. If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. All right, next, we are on to old business. Is there any old business from the board? I have one. I have a question, I've had a couple of other questions from board members regarding the interdepartmental memo that we, I believe, heard the presentation on, according to my notes, I think it was June 19th, because I was not at that meeting, and I believe Megan was the one that was in charge of that. Vic, can you give us an update where we are with that?
We are, Jeff McMillan, who was the person who did the work on that, has been unable to attend one of our meetings up to now. I did send a reminder to the controller asking him to invite Mr. McMillan to come back. I would certainly hope that we can get that thing settled by the end of the year.
I agree. I mean, we are now June, July, August, September. We are now 3 months, and this is not on CBU. I know that Vic has reached out several times. It's been 3 months that we haven't had an answer on this, and the interdepartmental memos have been 2 years in arrears.
That's right.
And this has been a continual issue that we've had, that the CBU has had. And so I'm publicly asking that the mayor's office or somebody please step in so we can get this done. As I spoke earlier in our meeting, we are going to have a new mayor in the new year, and I do think it's important that we get this cleaned up and we get answers on it before the new mayor takes office. This is something that has been ongoing, I know, for several years. I mean, Jeff and I have had, I think we're the senior members at this point, but it seems that every year we've been having these issues. We've had questions of why we're always 2 years in arrears. That is money that we as CBU are holding on to that it's constantly on our books, and we do need to get this straightened out. We've asked for several questions to be answered, and would appreciate some assistance with this. So it is on record that the board is asking for this if possible.
I appreciate that. The controller is also retiring at the end of the year.
Exactly.
I know he wants to get it done as well, so I will follow up with him and find out as quickly as I can what's going to happen with that.
And if there's anything that we can do as a board to move this forward please let us know. But it is something that we would like addressed. So if there's any other comment or questions about the interdepartment memos?
It's been a long-standing issue with getting them in a timely manner. I understand we would wait a year, you wait until that year's up, and there'd be some amount of time that we would wait. But we should talk to the city about what's a reasonable amount of time past the end of that calendar year that and it's been, yeah, it's been a year and a half, and maybe it should just be 4 months. So just having that discussion with them and understanding what a reasonable expectation is and what they're able to do.
Yeah. Is there any other old business? Is there any old business from staff? New business from the board?
I have one thing.
Okay.
So I just wanted to give a shout out to Christy Lindberg. She is our CBU Stormwater Education Specialist. I'm the National Honor Society Advisor at Bloomington High School South. And I've been talking with her since last spring, and she came and presented to our membership of 149 members at the beginning of the month about the Adopt a Drain process. And she came out last week, and she brought 2 backpacks filled with all of the things that we needed, including safety vests and flag, gloves, trash bags, bag for recycling, a broom to sweep the drain. And so I shared with Christy, and maybe it'll be out, Holly will send it out on social media or something, or Nolan. We were able to clean all the drains on North Drive, and we'll be doing this week on South Drive and maintaining those throughout the year. She left me a box of supplies, so this grabber here is to pick up things that we don't want to touch, which there were plenty of those. And so I just wanted to thank Christy and the Stormwater team and promote the Adopt a Drain to all of our residents, because it's a great program. And even if you're just helping maintain the drain that's on your street, we had drains that we could just walk right on by, and we had drains that we had to really get down and clean. And so when we're able to keep the stormwater flowing, then that's what we need to do, and keep that debris out of our stormwater drains. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Is there any way that we is her presentation long? Is it a?
Well, she shared about the stormwater, this shed, and how students can see how that we drain from south and then into Clear Creek, and then it gets to the White River and the Wabash River, all the way out to the Gulf of Mexico. It was really interesting. Yes.
I think that just in terms of having that out there for the public, it would be very, very helpful, and I think educational for all of us. I applaud Board Member Parmenter for taking this additional action on it. So any ways that we can, as board members, get involved with this, it's very helpful.
We'll discuss it and set it up for a future board meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you. All right. Is there any new business from staff? Okay. Subcommittee reports. We did have an administrative subcommittee meeting prior to this one. I wrote my notes here. The administrative subcommittee received an overview of our effective utilities management process from Jim Ginley, who is the consultant on this project. As an organization, we've completed the assessment portion, and Jim is here this week to present an overview of the process for the strategic plan for 2024-2026. He will be working with staff this week and leadership to start setting our goals and objectives and actions. I want to again publicly thank Jim, our leadership team, and all of the members, the staff members who have taken an active role in this. We are very eager to see the results of this and appreciate all the work that's being done. There was no action from this that was needed from the subcommittee, unless if any other members would like to say anything. All right. Next, then we will move on to the staff reports. Vic.
I don't have a lot other than to follow up with which you've just said about the strategic planning initiative. As I said during the subcommittee meeting, I really do appreciate all the staff who turned up to put to tell us what they were thinking about how we're doing. Altogether was 115 of about 190 employees all participated in it. So that was very good. As Maggie Sullivan said, we participated in the Friends of Lake Monroe's event, Lake Monroe Day, on September 17th. We did 3 2-hour tours of the water plant, which was very informative again this year as it was last year. There were nice large groups for each of the tours, and they asked a lot of really good questions. So it was really a great time. I enjoyed it, and we did also participate in the event afterwards at Upland, and I read the mayor's proclamation of Lake Monroe Day for the city at that event. Also, we participated last week on Thursday in the city's Residence Academy event. We had a huge group of 24 people who toured the Monroe plant. That's the biggest tour group I've ever had out there, and that also was very well, very engaging. Everyone had lots of questions, and it was a great time. So we've been doing a lot of that public outreach stuff here lately, and I'm excited about that. We're starting to see lots of different groups who are interested in seeing what we do, both on water and on sewer. And at both of those events, everyone who was on the tour expressed interest in visiting a sewer plant as well. So we'll be doing some follow-up tours with them, probably at Blucher Pool, because it's an easier walk. So, that's really all I. Oh, and this Wednesday is the second council review of our 2024 budget. I will be there to answer any questions that they have during the committee of the whole process, and we will expect them to take up the third reading of the budget and the salary ordinance in October. So we're in the home stretch at last.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thanks. Vic, this Residence Academy, for those board members who are not familiar with it, the city of Bloomington has a program called Residence Academy or Citizens Academy.
Citizens Academy, now it's Residence Academy. It's more inclusive now.
And I just want to, if you have any interest in any of these things, it is fascinating. My husband, for those of you who know, is now enrolled in the Citizens Police Academy. So look out, everyone. So it's so informational and a wonderful way to get to know kind of the inner workings of what are going on in our city. So thank you.
I think this was the 25th year for the
It's
for the
fabulous.
Residence Academy. Yeah,
So-
it's a if you've never done it, it's worth doing. You learn about all the city departments.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Great. Well, thank you. All right. And are there any other petitions or communications?
Did we recognize our new representative on the residential green infrastructure grant program?
We did not.
I didn't think we did.
Thank you for reminding me of that. So, as part of the residential grant program, one of the board members is invited to also review the grants, and I believe Seth has agreed to be the member for this year, so I appreciate it. And I think you'll truly enjoy getting involved with it. Every board member that has participated has felt that they've done something for the community and really got to learn a little bit more about what we do. So thank you.
Yeah, I learned from
Thanks.
staff this morning that went really well last week.
Yeah, we met last week, and it was everything that you said. An awesome experience. I learned a lot more about the staff, the process, and it's
Excellent.
a great experience.
Great, thanks,
Yeah.
Seth. All right, anything else? All right. And there's nothing from Zoom or any of that. Okay, so if there aren't any other issues, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.